friends, welcome to another reading lesson with Miss Meadows. I am so excited to be reading with you today, and because we are still continuing our work and our discussions on narrative nonfiction and revisiting some of our old stories from the beginning of the year, you do not need your My Books today because this book was not even in your My Books that we are going to be reading today. It was a read aloud that didn't exist in your My Book. So no worries about your My Book, just your listening ears to hear a fun story. So again, remember we are talking about narrative nonfiction, which I have my anchor chart for right here. So remember, a narrative nonfiction story gives facts about a topic, but it sounds like a story. So it's a story that is about something that really has happened or really exists. However, it's structured like a story. So there's a lot of different things that it could have, but not every narrative nonfiction story has all of these things. So the different things that a narrative nonfiction story could have are things like real settings. So that would mean real places in real life. It could have real people or real animals in it. But it could also have artwork that looks real. So pictures, real photos it could have, but it could also just have pictures, like drawn pictures that look like real animals. So if a bird had two heads, that probably wouldn't be nonfiction. It would probably be more fiction because birds don't really have two heads. That would be crazy. But if it just looks like a normal bird, then it could be a narrative nonfiction story. It also could have events in time order, dialogue, which is when the characters in our story say something with those quotation marks, words that describe, and then also text and graphic features the stories can also have. So that's our overall anchor chart, but let's shift over to our anchor chart specifically for our story today, which is on text organization, which is something we've seen a bunch this year. But this one we're specifically talking about description. Now, informational texts have a structure or a type of organization that fits the topic and the author's purpose. Now, there's that author's purpose we've been talking about too. And description is one kind of structure or organization. Authors choose description to tell details about what something is like. So if an author is describing something, they might think about it smells like, it sounds like, it acts like, it feels like, or it looks like. So for example, Miss Meadows is thinking about, I'm thinking about a fruit salad. I'm thinking about a fruit salad, like with all the chopped up fruit in a bowl. It smells like sweet. It might smell like the different fruits in there. I might smell banana or strawberries. I might smell oranges or grapes if I smell it. That would be my describing words for it smells like. It sounds like, well, when you're chewing it, it might sound like squishy, or if you put your hand in it, it might sound like a squishy sound, but it doesn't really make much sound otherwise because it's just a fruit salad. But that would be my describing words for it sounds like. It acts like a fruit salad. It's not a real life thing, so it doesn't really act like much, but it does act like a fruit salad. It feels like if I touched it, it would probably be cold, would be a describing word. It would probably be a little slimy, would be a describing word I would use. It might be sticky, and it might also be squishy, depending on what the type of fruit was. And it would look like colorful. That would be the describing word I would use for look like, because I would see a lot of different colors. The red strawberry, like white yellowy banana, green grapes, purple grapes, blue blueberries. I would see all those colors, so I would say it looks colorful would be my describing word for it looks like. Now, the author uses these describing words to make you understand what something looks, feels, smells, tastes like, all of those things. So you better understand what you're reading about. So we're going to see a lot of description in our story today, which you may remember is called Do You Really Want to Visit a Wetland? It's written by Bridget Hios and it's illustrated by Danielle Fabry, which means it's written by the author who writes the words and illustrated as the person who draws the pictures. So this is going to be one of our examples of narrative nonfiction. It might have some of those elements in it, and it's also going to be chocked with a ton of describing words, which is one of our narrative nonfiction elements. So let's go ahead and dive into this story. A visit to a wetland would help you ace your school report. Do you really want to go? It will be very wet. But wetlands are also full of interesting animals, and some of them will want to eat you. So I'm already seeing a couple describing words here. I'm seeing the word wet could be a describing word. I'm seeing the word before animals says interesting. Interesting animals could be a describing word. And I'm also noticing that we don't have any real photos right now, but we do have realistic artwork. This is a picture of a person, our character in the story, and he looks like a real person, which is the realistic artwork we look for in our narrative nonfiction stories. Be prepared for water everywhere. You'll need hip waders, and don't bring a regular boat. You'll need an airboat is what it is, with a big propeller above water so it doesn't get stuck in the muck. Don't forget the bug spray and sunscreen. Ready? Now you're off to explore the swamps, marshes, and sloughs of the Florida Everglades. Now, yesterday we talked a little bit about author's purpose. This one seems like the author might be trying to persuade us or convince us not to go to the Everglades. It might be saying, or the wetlands. It might be saying, I don't know that you want to go there. It doesn't seem like very much fun. Maybe you could go somewhere else, like Disney World, because it's going to be wet and animals might eat you. And it just doesn't seem like much fun. Maybe they're trying to persuade us not to go, while also informing us or teaching us about the wetlands. Start at the Shark River Slough. It looks like a big, still marsh, but the water moves through here like a slow river. I'm scared about the fact that it just said sharks. I hope there's not sharks. Don't worry. The bull sharks that the slough is named after live farther downstream. You might see rats or snakes. Uh-oh. Your boat is stuck. I would not want to see rats or snakes. And if my boat was stuck, I would maybe start crying. But this is interesting because this is telling us like a story. We see this character going through all of this, but it's teaching us. It's teaching us about the Shark River Slough, and it's teaching us that the sharks don't actually live there. They live further downstream. But there are events that are happening in order. Start at the Shark River Slough, and we're going to move through what to do next, which is also an element of narrative nonfiction. Time to get out and push and put on those waders. Don't touch the sawgrass. It's as sharp as a saw. It rots and forms the muck you're stuck in. Ugh, so don't touch that. We wouldn't want you getting cut by sawgrass. Too bad you can't glide across the water like that water moccasin, which is highly poisonous. Ugh, this is the water moccasin. I'm blocking it because it scares me. There he is. That snake. I don't really like him so much. He's looking a little bit scary to me. So I'm just going to cover him back up. We'll pretend he's not there, and we'll move along. Lucky for you, the snake finds a frog for lunch. Whew! And finally, your boat breaks free. Now you can continue your tour. Okay, here we go. People have drained half the Everglades to build houses and farms. Animals like the apple snail have lost some habitat. This affects the food chain. Birds, turtles, and alligators need the apple snail for food. Luckily, rainfall still feeds much of the wetlands. Clouds are rolling in right now. The Everglades are surrounded by 3 inches by water. That creates, I can't see how many inches, 12 inches? No. 12 inches? Maybe. Of rain per year. And when it rains, the water rises. Head west to the big cypress swamp. Oh, I think it was 14 inches. 14 inches. The trees overhead make it dark and a little eerie. There's some describing words. Dark and a little eerie. What's that sound? Quark, quark, quark. Oh, cute. It's a nest of alligators, and they're hatching. Miss Meadows doesn't really like alligators, so I'm a little bit spooked that they're hatching. Somebody else thinks they're cute, too. Oh dear, what else thinks they're cute? Their mother, perfect. Alligators are good mamas. That's bad for you. Quick, paddle away. Because that mother alligator is protective over its babies. It doesn't want you near its babies, so we need to scurry away. Head south towards the Gulf of Mexico. Here, the water mixes with the ocean and gets saltier, because in the ocean we have salt water, which is water that tastes like salt. This is a saltwater swamp. You can see the roots of the mangrove trees that grow here. And if you're lucky, you'll see an American crocodile. Crocodiles prefer salt water to fresh water. They are more rare than alligators and very shy. The Everglades is the only place on Earth where alligators and crocodiles coexist. Did you know that alligators and crocodiles are actually different? And crocodiles are nicer than alligators. Alligators are a little bit more mean. I learned this the other day because I was wondering what the difference was, and it's true. Crocodiles are very shy. They really don't want to be near you, but alligators do. They're a little bit meaner. Got to be more scared of alligators than crocodiles, I learned. The Everglades is a fragile ecosystem. If we don't take care of it, we'll lose it. And nobody wants that, right, manatee? Whoa, a manatee! A rare sight indeed. Now you can go home and ace your report. And here is our main character acing his report called The Everglades Are Awesome. I'm not sure I would call them awesome after this story, but to each their own. So that was our story today. It was narrative nonfiction because we had so many elements. We had events in time order. We had realistic artwork. We had describing words. We had real animals in it. It was totally narrative nonfiction. It taught us about the wetlands and maybe warned us or convinced us not to go to the wetlands, but it taught us all about the wetlands while also sounding like a story of this friend writing a report, which is super awesome. And there were tons of describing words to describe the wetlands, like dark and eerie and maybe a little dangerous. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I hope it made you laugh a couple times and maybe taught you a little bit more about the wetlands. You can go ahead and work on your gem choices. I had so much fun reading the story. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I will see you next time for another story. Bye, friends!